Have you ever looked at your blood pressure reading and wondered which one of these numbers is actually trying to hurt me? Is it the top number that always gets the attention, or the bottom number that quietly causes damage while no one is watching? Seniors, this is one of the most misunderstood and dangerous blind spots in health today. Millions of people are told, your blood pressure is a little high, given a pill, and sent home, without ever being told which number matters more, why it matters, and what it's really doing inside their body. And here's the real problem. If you focus on the wrong number, you may feel safe while damage continues silently. The solution isn't guessing, and it's not blind medication. The solution is understanding exactly what each number means, how aging changes your blood vessels, and which pressure becomes the real threat as you get older. Once you understand this, you regain control instead of living in fear of every reading. Let's start by clearing up the confusion. Blood pressure is written as two numbers, one on top of the other. Most people are told lower is better, but that advice is dangerously incomplete. These two numbers represent two very different forces inside your body. One reflects pressure when your heart contracts. The other reflects pressure when your heart relaxes. They do not behave the same with age, stress, diet, inflammation, or blood vessel damage. Treating them as equal is like treating fire and smoke as the same problem. Seniors especially need to understand this difference because aging changes the rules. As we get older, our arteries don't stay soft and elastic. Over time, they stiffen. Think of a brand new rubber hose versus one that's been left in the sun for decades. When the heart pumps blood into stiff arteries, pressure spikes higher than it should. That spike is what we see as the top number, the systolic pressure. This is why many seniors are told, your top number is high, but the bottom number looks fine. And here's where the danger hides. That top number is not just a number, it represents how hard your heart has to slam blood into rigid vessels again and again, thousands of times per day. Now let's talk about the bottom number, the diastolic pressure. This number reflects how much pressure remains in your arteries when the heart is resting between beats. In younger people, a high bottom number is often more concerning because it signals constant pressure that never lets the vessels relax. But as people age, something interesting and risky happens. The bottom number often stays normal or even drops, while the top number climbs higher and higher. This creates a wide gap between the two numbers, something many doctors glance over quickly. That gap is a warning sign that your arteries are losing elasticity and your heart is under strain. Here's where many seniors get misled. They hear, your diastolic number is okay, so don't worry too much. But focusing only on the bottom number in older adults is like checking the smoke alarm while ignoring the fire. Research consistently shows that for seniors, elevated systolic pressure is strongly linked to stroke, heart attack, kidney damage, vision loss, and cognitive decline. This is not because the bottom number doesn't matter, it's because stiff arteries turn the top number into a wrecking ball. But there's another layer most people are never told. Aggressively lowering blood pressure without understanding the balance can create new problems. If medications or dehydration push the bottom number too low, the brain and heart may not get enough blood flow between beats. This can lead to dizziness, falls, fatigue, and even increased risk of dementia over time. So the goal is not just lower numbers, the goal is healthy pressure dynamics. Strong circulation without excessive force. This is why simply chasing a perfect reading can backfire. You can't treat blood pressure like a thermostat, where lower is always better. Seniors need circulation, oxygen delivery, and vessel flexibility. The real danger comes when pressure is high because vessels are rigid, inflamed, and damaged, not because the heart is strong. So, which number is more dangerous for seniors? The answer depends on context. but for most older adults, an elevated systolic number is the bigger long-term threat. It signals arterial stiffness, poor vascular health, and increased workload on the heart. That doesn't mean the diastolic number is irrelevant. If it's too high, that's a problem. If it's too low, that's also a problem. Balance matters more than perfection. And here's the empowering part. High systolic pressure is not just a medication issue. It is deeply connected, tuned to insulin resistance, chronic inflammation, mineral imbalances, stress hormones, and lack of movement. This means there are ways to improve it naturally, by improving vessel flexibility, reducing inflammation, and supporting the body's ability to regulate pressure on its own. Now that you understand why the top number often becomes the bigger danger for seniors, let's go deeper into what actually causes it to rise, and why simply treating the number misses the real issue. Because blood pressure doesn't rise randomly, it rises for reasons, and if you don't address those reasons, the body keeps fighting back. One of the biggest drivers of rising systolic pressure in older adults is arterial stiffness. Healthy arteries are flexible. They expand when blood is pushed through them and recoil smoothly, helping blood flow forward without excessive force. But with age, inflammation, and poor metabolic health, those arteries lose their elasticity. Calcium deposits form where they don't belong. Sugar sticks to proteins in the vessel walls. Oxidative stress damages the lining. The result is a rigid pipe system instead of a flexible one. When the heart pumps into stiff arteries, pressure shoots upward. That's systolic hypertension in a nutshell. But here's something most people don't realize. This stiffness is not just an age problem. It's largely a metabolic problem. One of the strongest contributors is chronically elevated insulin. When insulin stays high, it signals the kidneys to retain sodium, increases inflammation in the vessel walls, and interferes with nitric oxide, the molecule that allows blood vessels to relax. Without nitric oxide, vessels stay tight, narrow, and resistant to blood flow. Pressure rises not because your heart is failing, but because your vessels are resisting. This is why many seniors who eat healthy but still consume frequent carbohydrates, fruit juices, breads, cereals, and hidden sugars struggle with high systolic readings. The body may look calm on the outside, but internally it's locked in a low-grade inflammatory state that stiffens arteries over time. And this stiffness doesn't improve with medication alone, because medication doesn't restore elasticity, it only suppresses force. Another overlooked factor is potassium deficiency. Potassium is critical for relaxing blood vessels and balancing sodium inside cells. Many seniors are unknowingly low in potassium because of poor diet, medications, or reduced absorption. When potassium is low, blood vessels constrict, pressure increases, and the heart works harder. This pushes the systolic number up while the diastolic number may remain unchanged, creating that dangerous gap we talked about earlier. Magnesium plays a similar role. It helps relax smooth muscle, including the muscle lining your arteries. Low magnesium equals tighter vessels, higher pressure, and more strain with every heartbeat. And here's the issue. Stress, caffeine, sugar, and many medications rapidly deplete magnesium. Seniors often think they're doing fine, but their bodies are running on empty when it comes to this critical mineral. Now let's talk about stress hormones. Chronic stress elevates cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones raise blood pressure by design. They prepare the body for danger. But when stress becomes constant, blood pressure never fully comes down. The systolic number rises first because the heart is pumping harder and faster against vessels that are already stiff. This is why emotional stress, poor sleep, and anxiety can spike readings even when diet looks decent. Sleep itself is another major factor. Poor sleep raises inflammation, disrupts blood sugar, increases cortisol, and reduces nitric oxide. Seniors with sleep apnea often have stubborn, high systolic pressure because oxygen deprivation triggers repeated stress responses throughout the night. Treating blood pressure without addressing sleep is like mopping the floor while the faucet is still running. Now here's where things get tricky and dangerous. Many seniors are given medication that lowers blood pressure forcefully without addressing vessel health. This can lower the top number, but it doesn't make arteries more flexible. In some cases, it pushes the bottom number too low. When diastolic pressure drops too much, the heart and brain may not receive adequate blood flow between beats. This is when people feel weak, dizzy, foggy, or unstable. Falls increase, fatigue becomes constant. And yet, the reading on paper looks better. The goal is not to crush blood pressure. The goal is to restore balance. Healthy pressure comes from relaxed, responsive vessels, not from suppressing the heart. That's why lifestyle changes often produce deeper, longer-lasting improvements than medication alone. Simple movement is powerful. Walking improves nitric oxide production, reduces insulin resistance, and gently conditions the arteries to respond properly to pressure changes. Strength training improves insulin sensitivity and supports vascular health. Breathing slowly and deeply activates the parasympathetic nervous system, lowering stress hormones and relaxing vessels naturally. Hydration matters more than most people think. Dehydration thickens blood, increases resistance, and forces the heart to pump harder. Seniors often underdrink water due to fear of frequent urination, but mild dehydration alone can elevate systolic readings significantly. All of this leads to one critical realization. High systolic blood pressure is not just a heart issue, it's a whole-body signal. It tells you your vessels are inflamed, stiff, stressed, and metabolically strained. The good news is that this means it's modifiable. Now let's bring everything together, because understanding the problem without knowing what to do next only creates more anxiety. This final piece is about practical, body-smart strategies that help seniors lower dangerous systolic pressure while protecting the brain, the heart, and overall vitality. This is not about chasing perfect numbers, it's about restoring balance so your blood pressure behaves the way it was designed to. The first priority is improving blood vessel flexibility. Remember, systolic pressure rises when arteries become stiff and resistant. One of the most powerful ways to reverse this is by stabilizing blood sugar and insulin. This doesn't mean starvation or extreme dieting. It means reducing frequent sugar spikes that quietly damage vessel walls. When you eat too often or rely heavily on refined carbohydrates, insulin stays elevated, inflammation increases, and nitric oxide production drops. Over time, arteries lose their ability to relax. Simply spacing meals, reducing sugar and refined starches, and emphasizing whole, nutrient-dense foods can dramatically improve vascular response. Many seniors are shocked to see systolic pressure drop within weeks, not months, once insulin levels calm down. Next comes mineral balance. Potassium and magnesium are not optional, they are foundational. Potassium helps counteract sodium inside cells, relaxes blood vessels, and supports healthy pressure regulation. Magnesium calms the nervous system, reduces arterial tension, and improves circulation. When these minerals are low, blood pressure medications often need to work harder, and side effects increase. Seniors should focus on potassium-rich foods like leafy greens, avocados, and vegetables while ensuring adequate magnesium intake through food or careful supplementation. When these minerals are restored, blood pressure often becomes more stable and predictable. Sodium deserves clarification. Sodium itself is not the enemy. The real problem is sodium without potassium. When sodium intake is high and potassium is low, blood vessels constrict. When sodium is balanced with adequate potassium, pressure regulation improves. Blindly cutting salt can actually worsen symptoms in seniors by lowering blood volume and diastolic pressure. Too much. Balance, not elimination, is the goal. Movement is another non-negotiable factor. You don't need intense exercise, but you do need regular motion. Walking improves endothelial function, increases nitric oxide, and gently trains blood vessels to respond properly to pressure changes. Resistance training supports insulin sensitivity and improves circulation. Even light daily movement reduces stiffness in the arteries. The key is consistency, not intensity. Breathing and stress regulation may sound simple, but they have a profound impact. Slow, deep breathing activates the vagus nerve, lowers cortisol, and relaxes blood vessels. Chronic stress keeps systolic pressure elevated even when diet and movement are addressed. Seniors who practice daily relaxation, whether through breathing, prayer, meditation, or quiet walks, often see measurable improvements in their readings. Sleep must be protected. Poor sleep raises blood pressure through inflammation, insulin resistance, and stress hormone release. If sleep apnea is present, blood pressure will remain stubbornly high until it's addressed. Restful sleep allows blood vessels to repair and pressure to normalize overnight. Finally, medications should be viewed as tools, not solutions. For some seniors, they are necessary, but they work best when combined with strategies that restore vessel health. Medications lower force, lifestyle restores function. When both work together, blood pressure becomes safer, more stable, and less dependent on escalating doses. So which blood pressure number is more dangerous for seniors? Most of the time it's the systolic number, but only because it reflects deeper problems inside the arteries. The goal is not to fear the number, but to understand it. When you support your vessels, your metabolism, your minerals, your sleep, and your stress response, the numbers begin to behave naturally. And when that happens, blood pressure stops being a source of fear and becomes a signal that your body is healing.